Welcome to a meeting of your Planning Commission, the official local planning agency for the cities of Tampa, Temple Terrace, Plant City, and unincorporated Hillsborough County. The Planning Commission provides innovative leadership and long-range vision that contributes to the creation of a thriving, prosperous community that offers opportunity, fairness, and choice in how we live, move, learn, work, and play. For more information about the Planning Commission, please call 813-272-5940. Follow us on social media or visit our website at planhillsborough.org.
Good evening and welcome to the May 8th, 2023 regular meeting of the Hillsborough County City County Planning Commission. We thank you for attending this meeting. Your comments and participation are encouraged. For those attending in person and wishing to speak on any agenda item, please sign the register at the rear of the room and turn off any devices that may be a distraction. To minimize feedback in the audio, all online participants in the meeting will be muted until it is their opportunity to speak. Planning commissioners should unmute themselves to indicate that they would like to speak. Please be sure to state your name at the beginning of your remarks for the benefit of the clerk. There will be an opportunity for members of the public to provide comments. When your name is called, you will be unmuted when it is your turn to speak. So please wait until the chair calls on you to begin speaking. State your name at the beginning of your comments and adhere to the time limits. If anyone has difficulties or is watching via HTV and would like to provide comments to be included in the record for local government hearing, please email them to planner@plancom.org. That's planner@plancom.org. For action items, the meeting will be conducted as follows. The agenda item will be introduced. Staff will give their presentation with a 15-minute time limit. The applicant will be given the opportunity to make a presentation with a 15-minute time limit. Following presentations, members of the public may address the Planning Commission when recognized by the chair. Public comment will be heard for 3 minutes per person. The applicant will be afforded a 3-minute period for rebuttal or response. Planning commissioners will ask questions. Public comment will be closed. Then upon a motion, a second, and discussion, a vote will be taken. With that introduction, I will ask Commissioner Bernstein to lead us in the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. Would all please rise?
Today we focus on the objectives we have. Who are meant to promote, coordinate, collaborate, facilitate with all people, creating and implementing a long-range planning vision for our community. Improve economic development, quality of life, provide value-added services. Help us fill that mission. Bless us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, with that introduction, I will ask the clerk to go ahead and call roll, please.
Good afternoon. Bernstein?
Here.
Bowden?
Here.
Buzzer?
Here.
Cardenas?
Here.
Fernandez?
Here.
Handy?
Virtually here. No, not you.
Loic?
Here.
Kress?
Here.
Saria? Saria? Orton?
Here.
Rodriguez? Rodriguez? Joseph?
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum.
Thank you. All right. Now, before we get into the business before us, we have to, as a board, look at whether or not we want to allow Commissioner Handy voting. We have to kind of take a look because she's joining us virtually, I believe. Tracy?
Yes, I understand that Commissioner Handy had an unexpected event that took her out of town. She had planned to attend, and that she's requesting the opportunity to participate virtually. I don't know whether that's by virtual video or by phone conference, but either one.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Buzzard?
Could you clarify the rules for that we discussed in the workshop and for the,
That the requirement is for there to be some sort of exigent circumstance which would then require the board to consider the request on a case-by-case basis. And that's part of the reason why I said, you know, she apparently, from what I understand, did plan to attend. She indicated in an email that I received that she was unexpectedly called out of town and she wanted to participate. So I think it's appropriate for the board's consideration.
Thank you. All right, are there any other questions? Commissioner Bernstein?
No questions, Mr. Chair, but I was prepared to make a motion.
All right, yes, please.
In light of the exigencies cited by our counsel in connection with Commissioner Handy's inability to attend today, I move that we go ahead and vote in favor of allowing her to participate virtually.
All right.
Second.
All right, we have a motion made by Commissioner Bernstein, a second to that motion by Commissioner Kress. Any questions or discussion from the commissioners? Seeing no discussions, I'll ask the clerk to go ahead and take a roll call vote.
And just a quick point of question, are we not recording a vote for Handy on this one?
I don't believe so until we vote that she can vote.
That's correct.
Right.
Just wanted to clarify. Bernstein?
Yes.
Bowden?
Yes.
Buzza?
yes?
Cardenas?
Yes.
Fernandez?
Yes.
Loke?
Yes.
Kress?
Yes.
Joseph?
Yes.
Motion carried 8-0.
All right, thank you. All right, we will move on to our first item of business. Oh, wait, I still have March minutes to approve. March 2023 meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to approve those by anyone? Commissioner Buzza?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll approve. Move for approval.
All right, we have a motion of approval by
Second.
motion of approval by Commissioner Buzza, a second to that motion by Commissioner Kress. Are there any questions from the commissioner? Not seeing any at this time, I'll ask the clerk to do a roll call vote on that item.
Bernstein?
Yes.
Bowden?
Yes.
Buzza?
Yes.
Cardenas?
Yes.
Fernandez?
Yes.
Handy?
Yes.
Loke?
Yes.
Kress?
Yes.
And Joseph?
Yes.
Motion carried 9-0.
All right, thank you very much. On to our second item on the agenda, public input for items not scheduled for action on the agenda. We have a couple people online to speak to a couple items in our briefings and presentations. So I will go ahead and let those individuals speak at this point in time. First up, I have Stephen Benson, the City of Tampa, speaking on item 4B1. Is he with us?
Stephen, can you go ahead and unmute yourself, please?
Need to build up an internal team on Eric's side for maintenance and on kind of Brian and Steven's side.
Stephen, can you hear me?
City is
Negative. We can move on to someone else and come back. You guys can keep trying to work on it.
Yes, Stephen just signed off.
Okay. All right. Then next we have Michael Marino for item 4B8.
Good afternoon, Plan Commissioners. I'm Michael Marino. I'm the Executive Director of the West Shore Alliance. And just speaking about item 4B, which is the West Shore Alliance overlay changes. This has been approved internally through our executive committee, our board directors. We have done some public outreach as well. There's actually elements of the overlay changes that reflect some of the needs and concerns of the residential neighborhood, especially as it relates to encroachment of development upon the single-family neighborhoods. And I will stay on the line in case there are any questions, but we would appreciate your support in continuing forward to the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, next up, we have Cynthia Spidell. Oh, okay, sorry. Well, I guess that's it then. We have for the public comment, public input right now. So we will move on at this point in time then to our action items. First and only action item we have is number 3. 3A, approval of updated interlocal agreement for school facilities planning, siting, and concurrency. And the presenter is Sophia Garantiva.
All right, good afternoon, Planning Commission. Oh, there we go. All right, good afternoon. My name is Sophia Garantiva, Planning Commission staff, here to present on the update to the Hillsborough County interlocal agreement for school facilities planning, siting, and concurrency. So the interlocal agreement outlines the requirements and procedures that are utilized in coordinating land use, siting, and development of public educational facilities between Hillsborough County School Board, and the Planning Commission. The existing agreement was last updated in 2016 and is being revised to improve the school siting process and proposes several amendments to the 2016 agreement. It's important to note that the Planning Commission is a limited party in this agreement and that the School Board and the Board of County Commissioners approved this agreement last month, April 18th and 19th respectively. In the next few slides, I will review the applicable changes to the agreement. Starting with the creation of a staff working group, the group consists of the COO of the school district, Executive Director of the Planning Commission, Deputy County Administrator, and nominated staff from each organization, and is being formed to exchange information and coordinate planning activities between agencies. The group will also hear appeals of Planning Commission determinations and consistency with the comprehensive plan. Next is the long-range school plan. The school district periodically conducts long-range school planning studies to establish school facility needs. The most recent study was conducted in 2021, and the agreement now formalizes this process and establishes the long-range school plan. The plan has a horizon of 15 years and must be updated at least every 5 years, beginning in 2025. This agreement also updates various review and procedural requirements. It establishes a provision that the school board assumes the risk associated with acquiring a proposed school site, which the Planning Commission has determined is not consistent with the comprehensive plan. It also provides clarification of requirements as to where public schools are permitted and the process by which school siting occurs in the rural service area. It requires formal inclusion of school district staff comments in Planning Commission staff reports for any future land use map or text amendments, which memorializes an existing process, and revises timeframes from which Planning Commission staff provides data related to population projections, growth and development trends to the school district staff. This is a change that Planning Commission staff proposed. Lastly, the agreement includes revisions to recently adopted state statutes. This includes updating the Florida facilities location considerations and review procedures between each agency to coordinate the location of new facilities, and updates other state statutes, references, and clarification of key term definitions. Staff is supportive of these changes and recommends that the Planning Commission approve the attached resolution, which authorizes the chair of the Planning Commission to execute the Hillsborough County interlocal agreement for school facilities planning, siting, and concurrency. This concludes my presentation. County and school district staff is here and available for any questions.
Thank you. Is yours the only presentation being made? Yeah, okay, all right.
Yes.
Are there any, or no one signed up for public comment on this item, so I'll go ahead and turn it over to the planning commissioners. Are there any comments or questions? Not seeing any at this point. Actually, hold on a second. Melissa, did anybody sign up for this item back there? No? Okay. All right. So not seeing any, I will go ahead and close the public comment on this item now. and turn it over to the planning commissioners for motions on this item. Commissioner Buzzer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve the updated interlocal agreement for school facilities, planning, siting, and concurrency.
All right, we have an approval motion from Commissioner Buzzer. Commissioner Bowden?
I second the motion.
All right, a second to that motion by Commissioner Bowden. Any more questions or discussions from the commissioners on this item? Not seeing any, I'll ask the clerk to go ahead and do a roll call vote on this item.
Bernstein?
Yes.
Bowden?
Yes.
Buzza?
Yes.
Cardenas?
Yes.
Fernandez?
Yes.
Handy?
Yes.
Loke?
Yes.
Kress?
Yes.
Joseph?
Yes.
Motion carried 9-0.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. All righty then. All right, that is our only action item for tonight. So now we have briefings and presentations, and the first one is 4A, unincorporated Hillsborough County Land Development Code Amendments, 1, 2, and 3. I will let you introduce them. And the presenter is Jillian Massey.
Thank you. Let me just bear with me a second, waiting for the presentation to open. Oops. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jillian Massey with Planning Commission staff. I'm here to introduce Israel Monsanto from Department of Development Services, who will be briefing you on 3 Land Development Code amendments.
Good evening. Israel Monsanto Development Services. Commissioners, today we have 3 Land Development Code amendments. The first one is LDC 230138, Vaping Retail Shop Standards. The second one is 230311, Comprehensive Plan Amendments and Related Rezoning Applications. The third item is 230312, Yard Waste, Air Curtain Incinerators. First item, 230138, Vaping Retail Shop Standards. This Land Development Code text amendment add development standards to the location and permitting of establishments that sells vaping products within 500 feet of public or private elementary, middle, and secondary schools. This will require a conditional use zoning permit to be approved for the establishment within 500 feet of public or private schools. Vaping retail shops within 500 feet of a school will be a permissible conditional use in the commercial neighborhood, commercial general, commercial intensive, and manufacturing districts, as well as planned developments which permits uses allowed in the zoning districts above. It will also prohibit vaping retail shops with more than 20% of its total monthly retail sales of vaping products within 500 feet of a public or private school. These shops will, with more than 20% of its total monthly retail sales of vaping products located within 500 feet of the public or private school that were a permitted use and in lawful operation by the effective date of this amendment would be deemed a legal non-conforming use. This amendment also provides for a procedure for the revocation of a conditional use for a vaping retail shop by the administrator in the event that the applicant provides false or misrepresentations of material facts in his application for the permit. And this concludes the general summary of this text amendment.
All right, were there any questions on this one, Commissioner Bernstein?
Yeah, perhaps, thank you for the presentation. Perhaps you can enlighten me just a bit on that 500-foot restriction and the origin of that, that distance in particular. I ask only because it strikes me as a bit short. When we think about public schools, that's a 167-yard distance. If my math is right, was there any consideration given to a more extended distance than 500 feet?
Our understanding, Commissioner, is that we look at different distance requirements and compared to other jurisdictions, and the 500 feet was the most common one. Additionally, we also have a very similar requirement for the medical marijuana facilities, and that's what the staff took from the direction from the board.
So medical marijuana facilities, dispensaries, current restriction is also 500 feet from any public or private school.
Correct.
Well, I guess this is just for the record, but I'm going to go ahead and offer my own opinion for what little it may be worth, that somebody somewhere needs to revisit those distances. I don't think they're sufficient enough, at least for my own purposes. It seems like maybe there's some more work to be done, but that probably takes place outside the purview of this commission, but thank you.
Comments taken. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Bernstein. Were there any other questions or comments, discussion items from the commissioners?
Actually,
Oh, yes, Commissioner.
this may be a
Fernandez.
little off topic, but along the same lines. For one, who is it that does put that together? And then for two, is there any type of restriction on how many can be inside of a space together? Because right now they're popping up everywhere. Like within every block, you've got 3 or 4 in some places. So is there anything in that?
Currently, this text amendment does not contemplates a number. We do have a similar requirement for alcoholic beverage permits within 1,000 feet. You have more than 3, etc., but not for this one. It just regulates the amount of the percentage of the sales within 500 feet. So no more. If they have more than 20%, they are prohibited. But it could be more than 1, less than 20% within those 500 feet, technically. Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Buzzer.
Just a quick question, in knowing how pervasive convenience stores are, does City of Tampa already have a limitation on convenience stores within 500 feet of a school? You know, I assume some were grandfathered in because they were existing prior to probably some regulation on that part, but.
I'm not sure with the city.
Or the county.
Currently.
What about the county? I mean, I'm sorry, I'm had you as a city, but you are county, so. Does the county have any limitations on convenience stores within schools, 500 feet of a school? Because obviously they got beer, wine, and cigarettes, so.
No, we don't have, it's not contemplated in this text amendment.
If I might, but there are requirements about the sale of alcoholic beverages within.
Right.
Around
Yeah.
school. What's the distance from a school that they have?
It's 500 feet.
500 feet
Yeah,
also.
the alcoholic beverage also has a similar requirement for 500 feet, and also a number, depending on the type of licenses of alcoholic beverage. They cannot be more than 3, but you can also go through a special use permit to waive those requirements as well.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner Fernandez.
I just want to speak up on the distance thing. I deal with this all the time. I'm an expert in setbacks, and a lot of times it's not really the distance; it's the language in the type of measurement. So we can have a parcel that's 500 feet, but by means of normal pedestrian or travel, could be 5 miles away, right? Just right behind you. So they're kind of, it all depends how they're written. But I just think that, if the point is to obviously deter school children from it, you'd want that distance to be a pedestrian or a travel distance. So a lot of times a commercial real estate property will lose their ability to open to something, even though children are probably not even going to pass by it. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Fernandez. Any other comments or discussion items from the commissioners? Not seeing Commissioner.
Well, Israel, could you perhaps clarify whether the 500 feet is measured by as the crow flies or by travel distance?
It's a straight line.
Straight line.
From property line to property line.
A tricky crow. All right. Any other comments or discussion items from the commissioners? Not seeing any. We'll thank you for the information and move on to the next item.
Next item, LDC 230311, comprehensive plan amendments and related rezoning applications. The purpose is to modify the procedures of amendments to official zoning atlas, which is rezonings of the Land Development Code, specifically the considerations and final decision by the board when rezoning or major modification applications are related to applications to also amend the future of Hillsborough comprehensive plans. This will establish that applications proceeding in accordance with the Land Development Code Part 1003 that are contingent on a request to amend the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan of unincorporated Hillsborough County will be deemed withdrawn and of no further effect in the event that such requested amendment to the Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County is denied by the Board of County Commissioners, and no further proceedings or action will be required. that concludes this summary.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this item from the commissioners? Yes.
If I could just add, this instance came up at a board meeting recently when a plan amendment was denied, and then there were sort of some questions about whether or not the zoning could proceed, so we're very supportive of this clarification.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this one? Not seeing any lights, then I will go ahead and move on to the next item. Thank you.
And the last item today for the Land Development Code amendments is 230312, yard waste, air curtain incinerators. This amendment modifies the standard for yard waste, air curtain incinerators, or ACI facilities. The amendment will distinguish between commercial facilities, which accept yard trash generated off-site for incineration, and those that are temporary and accessory to the clearing of land, limited to the incineration of yard trash generated on that site only. Commissioners, you have in front of you one of the options that was presented at the board workshop, which is basically specifying that the commercial facilities will be permissible as a conditional use only in the commercial intensive manufacturing and zoning districts. However, at the Board of County Commissioner workshop, the board directed staff to consider this use to be only approved through a plan development rezoning. So we will be exploring two different text options changes. So the second option will specify that commercial facilities will only be permissible through a rezoning to a plan development zoning district. So basically the difference is that through a conditional use is an administrative review by staff when these commercial facilities come in for review and permitting. And during that period of review, it's just an administrative internal only, a conditional use. The other option, a plan development rezoning, will require an application to go through a public hearing process, a notice process, and it will be a zoning hearing master hearing, and also it will be approved or denied by the Board of County Commissioners. So we will have two different text options. Now the facilities that are accessory to land clearing for site development will be permitted in all zoning districts as a conditional use. That hasn't changed. This amendment will also provide for minimum required setbacks along boundaries and roadways, increased yard for residential development, or zoning district duration, the duration of the use of for accessory, restricts the duration of the use for accessory temporary air curtain incinerator sites, and requires screening by a solid fence. Additionally, all state, local, and federal permitting and restrictions and requirements shall also be reviewed as well. And that concludes this summary.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the commissioners or discussions on this item? Not seeing any. Well, thank you for the presentations and information. Move on to our next item of business. 4B is a presentation, City of Tampa Land Development Code Amendments, and it looks like we have 9 of them, so I will give it over to Emily Phelan to introduce them.
Good afternoon, Emily Phelan, Planning Commission staff. There are 9 publicly initiated LDC text amendments relating to public notice in the event of an emergency declaration, changes related to public notice requirements, development standards for Seminole Heights Commercial General and Seminole Heights Commercial Intensive, fence height and residential zoning districts, adaptive reuse, a definition of a courtyard, solid waste, the West Shore Overlay District development standards, and electrical vehicle charging, both a definition and parking requirements. This is just a briefing. It will be back for hearing next month, and city staff is available for any questions you may have.
Hello, good afternoon. Andy Mikulski, City of Tampa, Senior Planning Coordinator. I'm here for questions, and I do have a show, so apologize. Sorry. Slideshow, not a show. Good. All right, thank you. Okay, I'll just run through these amendments fairly quickly. We had 10, we are down to 9. The public notice for design exceptions was continued at the request of our city council. We had 3 virtual public meetings, March 20th, 21st, and 22nd, and we have the meeting minutes and the agendas and questions and answers there on that link if you choose to look at them. Here's the schedule. April 27th, the City Council workshop moved to transmit the final language to the Planning Commission staff. May 8th, we're here today, and then June 12th is the hearing, and then City Council first reading is scheduled for June 22nd, second for July 13th. First amendment here, this is just public notice in the event of an emergency declaration. This was to, during EN, City Council had to convene in order to continue the cases. So this is just stating that in the case of a public emergency, cases will automatically be continued without having to convene a public meeting. The second item just clarifies public noticing requirements. It actually requires the record and application number to be placed on the sign and mailings. This was not actually in the code, but now it will be. This next one is the Seminole Heights CGCI. This is to correct a scrivener's error. Currently, it states that the allowable height in CG, commercial intensive and commercial general, is 55 stories, and it should be 55 feet. Next one, the fence and wall regulations. This allows, in the case where we have a residential and a commercial use next to each other. Right now, code allows the commercial use to actually do an 8-foot fence, but not the residential. So this affords the residential the same rights as the commercial property, but just for that section on the, just adjoining the property line. Adaptive reuse, this expands the adaptive reuse as a general use throughout the city. Right now it's just in Ybor City. This is going to allow it throughout the city and Seminole Heights, just in non-residential zoning districts. Solid waste, this is just to adjust the requirements for solid waste enclosures, I think from 10 to 12 feet. It's just a minor. Next one, courtyards. This is defining courtyard. Right now, in our special use, or I'm sorry, in our special districts and overlays, there's reference to the term courtyard. However, it's not actually defined in the code. So this is actually going to define the term courtyard. And you can see our proposed language there. Basically, it's an open area, open to the sky, bounded on at least 2 sides by building, or walls, and exclusively for the use of pedestrians, not motor vehicles. Here's this has been kind of morphed into a little bit of a contentious issue about what is a courtyard. So the reason we have some pictures in here is to kind of clarify that. So this green box here highlighted, that would be considered a courtyard, picture of it, and those are not courtyards, where in the past we had some people saying that, trying to stretch the definition, so we're just kind of defining it. Next item is the West Shore Commercial Overlay. It's making several updates to the West Shore Overlay, including expanding street type categories, parking standards, and clarifying some buffer requirements. This was an ongoing effort by the West Shore Alliance, and we worked with them on this update. And here's the timeline. It was approved by the Alliance Board of Directors in late 2022 and submitted to city staff for consideration in 2023. And we reviewed it amongst the departments and presented it to council, and here we are. So the big thing is with the West Shore interchange, there's going to be some new streets punching through where they're currently disconnected. So what we're doing is assigning street topologies, which are currently in the West Shore overlay, to these new streets. So they'll have to be built to certain standards. Also, the other items are clarifying and modifying requirements for buffers. There's some conflicting language about where vehicle use areas adjoin some of the pedestrian priority streets, and it's just clarifying some of the language. It had some West Shore Boulevard references on non-West Shore streets, so we're cleaning that up. Dimensional changes to the large and small open spaces. There's some code requirements at certain intersections that they have to do either a 20 by 20 or a 40 by 40 plaza. This is allowing them to do basically rectangular plazas, provided they meet the overall square footage requirements And we're also reducing some of the parking requirements for mixed-use properties. That's it on there. Yeah, basically, the parking, what we're doing is taking the parking down to 1 per residential unit. That's kind of the big gist of it. Also amending the parking to align more with the Ybor City parking requirements, which is what the Alliance is hoping to mimic, just so we have a kind of a consistent parking between those two districts. Last item is to amend the code to include definition of electric vehicle capable and electric vehicle installed. And what it would do is require new developments over 50 parking spaces to require 5% of the project spaces to be EV capable. And what that is it means that you have electric panel capacity and a dedicated raceway to the parking spot. Does not require the actual installation of the EV charger, but it makes it easy for future proofing. Should the developer decide when the time is right, they could easily install it. Okay, and I'm here for any questions.
Thank you. All right. Are there any questions from the commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Kress.
Hi, Andy.
Hey.
Question about parking, of
Mm-hmm.
course. What was the conversation, and maybe it was really with the West Shore Alliance and you were just kind of given it, but was there any conversation regarding parking and just kind of letting the market decide what they wanted to build as opposed to being, reducing the amounts and being prescriptive?
There was. We brought that up to them. We suggested following the downtown code and or also letting the market decide. And they weren't quite comfortable with going that far yet, so they thought this was a good first step. And then see how it plays out, and then maybe in the future we could look at reducing it further.
And if I may, about the adaptive reuse, is that waive parking requirements?
It's going to be, that's going to give the mobility department the kind of the ability to look at it on a project-by-project basis. Because right now, if it is, you're not going to modify your site, so it's going to depend on the use, and it's going to be up to the mobility department.
Yes, Commissioner Lowe.
Thank you for the information. The EV parking at 5%, where was the 5% derived? From where was it derived?
That was, from the, I believe we looked at, I don't want to speak for the zoning administrator who proposed this, but I believe we looked at other cities, other jurisdictions, and arrived at 5%, but I could find out where we got that from.
I'm just curious. When it comes back, I probably will have the same question.
Okay.
All right. Are there any other questions or comments, discussion items from the commissioners? Not seeing any. We'll thank you for the info. Oh, yeah, sorry, Commissioner Fernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just say with the 5%, I have an electric car, and I'm just thinking, I thought I read this week that they make up about 7% of car sales. So if that keeps increasing, I think that 5% might be low for future developments.
Okay.
That's all. Just opinion.
All right. Were there any more comments from the commissioners? Questions? Once, going twice. Not seeing any. Well, thank you for the information, and we will move on to our next item on the agenda. Oh, wait. No, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Sorry. I saw Emily sitting there, and I expected her to come back up, but I guess that's pretty much it. So, item 4C, line 4, yeah. 4C, PCCPA 22-15, future land use map amendment, north of Swindell Road, east of Charlie Taylor Road, and the presenter is Krista Kelly.
Is it somewhere else? Hi, Krista Kelly, Planning Commission staff, and I'll be right with you. 2215. 2215. Thank you. Oh. Thank you. This evening, I'm presenting to you Plant City Future Land Use Map Amendment, PCCPA 2215. This is a privately initiated amendment. It is a regular amendment, meaning that it is over 50 acres. It is actually approximately 243 acres in size.
66 of those acres are within the Plant City city limits, and 176 acres are pending a voluntary annexation into the city. The applicant is requesting an amendment from Hillsborough County's Residential 1 and Agricultural Rural 1 to 5 land use designation to the Plant City industrial category. As you can see on the location map on the right, the site is in the northeast portion of Plant City, adjacent to the Hillsborough County, Polk County city or boundary. The site is also within the boundary of the Northeast Plant City Area Master Plan. Specifically, the site is located north of Swindell Road, east of Charlie Taylor Road, and again, west of county line between Hillsborough County and Polk County. I also want to mention that it is adjacent to access roads to I-4 to the south. This is a bird's eye view of the site to give you an idea of the surrounding uses and the site currently used for agricultural purposes and identified by the red flags. As you can see, the surrounding area reflects a mixture of agricultural lands, open space, environmental lands, and then along Swindell Road right here, you see established rural residential neighborhoods. To the south, you see additional neighborhoods, and you also see I-4. This is County Line Road to the east of the subject property, and this is within Polk County. You see a distinctly different development pattern, which reflects light industrial and office uses. This is a street view looking at the site north on Swindell Road towards the site. This is looking east towards Polk County down Swindell Road. The site is out of the frame to the left. This is looking west down Swindell Road towards Charlie Taylor Road, and the subject site again is out of the frame and to the right. This is the adopted future land use map currently showing the site outlined in the black dashed lines. The white area reflects the portion of the site that was annexed and retains the Residential 1 Hillsborough County designation at this time. The light and dark green reflect the Hillsborough County designation of Agricultural Rural 1 to 5 and Residential 1. As you can see, the surrounding area is also a mixture of agricultural, rural, and residential 1. There are also residential 4 in this area. This was amended recently as of last year, the end of last year. This site is also an amendment site in process. They're requesting a change from residential 1 to industrial. This is the proposed future land use map showing the site designated industrial. As you can see, it's a large portion of industrial surrounded again by agricultural, rural, and residential 1 and residential 4 land use category. You do note to the south around the interchange of I-4 there is industrial, it's light industrial, and it is within the county, as is this residential 1 land use designation running along I-4. Currently up to 122 dwelling units could potentially be developed and up to 1.6 million square feet of non-residential uses. With the proposed change, residential uses would be eliminated. Residential uses are not permitted in the industrial category, and up to 5.3 million square feet would be allowable. Overall, the proposed amendment would result in the elimination of residential development and introduce industrial uses in this area of Northeast Plant City. And that was a brief overview of the amendment request, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. And the applicant, I believe, is virtually available.
Thank you. Are there any questions, discussion items from the commissioners? Not seeing any lights. Then we will thank you for the presentation and move on to our next item of business. And that is 4D, Fowler Avenue Vision Study. And the presenter is Alvaro Gabaldon.
Thank you, Chair Joseph. I'm going to present virtually to everybody, so share my screen. All right, good afternoon, Planning Commission. My name is Alvaro Gabaldon with Planning Commission staff, and I'm here to present an update on the Fowler Avenue Vision Study that has been ongoing. Sorry, and is my screen full? There's no windows on it, right? It's showing correctly?
Yes, it is full screen.
All right, thank you. Fowler Avenue Vision Study. We've conducted some public engagement and have some preliminary policy updates to share with you all this afternoon. All right, so just a refresher from the last time we may have updated you on this project. Fowler Avenue is at the intersection of jurisdictional boundaries, so there's a lot of interesting and unique planning challenges that come from the City of Tampa and unincorporated county meeting just above Fowler Avenue itself. Actually, it bisects the University Mall parking lot, so there's a lot of big employers here. There's University of South Florida. There's a lot of redevelopment interest in the area. And then, of course, there's a lot of socioeconomic and equity issues to be mindful of in this area as well. So Vision Plan is really trying to bring light to all of these things while gaining consensus amongst the stakeholders on clear and consistent strategies that can be shared across jurisdictions to help guide and envision the future of development in this area. Obviously, enabling equitable redevelopment and coordinating with the transportation studies and projects that are planned for this area as well are another outcome that we desire from this study. The yellow boundary is our study area. So as you can see, there's that meeting of the unincorporated and city land right above Fowler. We also go all the way east to 52nd Street, just to the border of Temple Terrace, and then north and south, incorporating all those residential areas that are north and south of Fowler Avenue. The red diamond on this timeline represents where we are today. We have just concluded conducting our stakeholder focus group meetings. That is just one item amongst the activities we've been doing since the beginning of the year to gather community feedback on this project. We've been attending community events, and we've conducted an open house and some walking tour audits with members of the community where they were able to share their thoughts and experience the pedestrian, I guess, wayfinding through the area with the consultants and the project team. So this is kind of what I just hashed out verbally, but we've been working on these engagement activities since the beginning of the year. Looking forward, we hope to have our second community workshop / open house by the end of this summer, perhaps August. And the policy recommendations that are forthcoming in this presentation will be further hashed out by this open house, allowing the public to interact with more specific directions that the vision plan is proposing. One note about the focus groups that we conducted, they were targeted towards participants that were organizational stakeholders. So we spoke to a lot of employees, managers, people involved, with organizations like USF. The new CEO of Mosey stopped by, and other community organizations in the area shared their perspectives on some of the issues and some of the future ideal state visions they have for the corridor. So this is just our engagement thus far by the numbers. We did 4 walking tours, 18 community members, mostly community neighborhood association leaders participated with us. We had 6 stakeholder focus group meetings. So that included organizations like USF, Mosey, et cetera. 22 total participants in that exercise. We've also had an online survey for the general public, but specifically targeted to participants in the study area, of course, that just asked very broad visioning questions. What do you like? What don't you like about the study area? What do you see for the future? And we've had 259 responses to that survey thus far. So compiling all of the feedback from these activities since January, we've gathered insights. I've bolded some of the ones that stuck out. And these ideas sort of permeate the different categories that they fall in. So one, for example, under the community group of questions, but that sticks out with the other groups of questions, is that Fowler Avenue is a physically and socially a dividing road. So the road sort of dominates the psyche of the people that live there. And you can see that manifest itself through what people say about the safety comments, walking and biking conditions, buildings and connectivity. It boils down to this road being not very friendly, making walking not very feasible, and disconnecting the community, amongst other comments here, obviously. But these comments in their entirety and an overview of our engagement thus far and existing conditions of the area are available in our Community Opportunities and Constraints Technical Report. This report was completed in March or so, and it's available on our project page you can download it. The major sections of the report are listed on this slide, but this was really the foundation for the redevelopment vision statement that the consultant is proposing to us here. So that reads, Fowler Avenue will be an inclusive and vibrant community that welcomes a diversity of people and businesses by providing those who live, work, and play in the area with safe, convenient, and accessible options for housing, employment, transportation, and recreation. So that's the overarching vision statement of this plan. And then if you think of it as a step down from that broad vision, these are the objectives that the plan and the community and the stakeholders involved with this project have to accomplish in order to basically create that desired future state of Fowler. So these objectives are as such. You can see a focus on community character identity, again, addressing connectivity, safety concerns, and redevelopment that provides opportunities for new people in the area, and as well as the current residents and businesses that are there. A strategy to accomplish these objectives is shown on this slide. So this is basically taking one of the ideas that the report is presenting, and that is basically dividing the study area into 4 character districts. So you can see here that there's a mixed-use district, innovation employment center, a neighborhood transition district, and just a neighborhood district. So as a strategy to accomplish that overarching vision, each of these districts will contain land use controls and suggestions, recommendations for policy that accomplish the primary objective that the district is setting out to accomplish. So, I mean, it's the mixed use district obviously will have a focus on creating those live, work, play opportunities and addressing the connectivity that people need, the non-automobile reliant connectivity that a mixed use center proposes. Comparing that to the yellow, the District 4 neighborhood district, the vision of this district may be different from the mixed use, but overall, the combination of these 4 creates that vibrant community that the vision statement is proposing. So if you think about these things as an inverted pyramid, we started with a broad vision statement. We talked about policy objectives. I gave an example of a strategy policy strategy, and then here is the, I guess, the bottom of the pyramid. This is the actual policy recommendations. So these are themes that the consultant is exploring to accomplish that pyramid. These are more specific than the other items I've discussed, but these obviously live closer to implementation than the vision statement, for example. So some of the ideas that the consultant is pursuing are creating density and intensity standards that can be uniform between the jurisdictions that compose our study area, allowing a varied land use mix, focusing on creating a sense of place through urban design, and again, addressing connectivity, infrastructure, mobility, and the quite tangible, like the building form and placement that is necessary, again, to create the vision that we're envisioning, I suppose. So next steps for this project, we will be presenting this update to the Hillsborough TPO advisory committees throughout this month, and ending with the TPO board meeting in June. In between this time, we will also be accompanying our partners at FDOT, who are conducting their PD&E study of the Fowler Avenue corridor, and they will be hosting a June 15th public workshop where they will be providing an overview of the alternatives that they are considering. We will not be presenting there, but we will have a table and be there to provide information about our own efforts on Fowler. And like I mentioned before, we hope to conclude our public engagement segment by the end of this summer with a second open house where the public will get to interact with these policy ideas in a more hashed out iteration. In between now and that open house, we will have an updated survey where participants can also interact with these policy recommendations, and hopefully we can bring those insights to light at the open house. So again, my name was Alvaro Gabaldon. I'm working with Jay Collins, who is also here with me virtually and available for questions. And that concludes our presentation.
Thank you, Alvaro. Are there any questions or discussion items from the commissioners at this point in time? Not seeing any. I did have a quick question. Where is that FDOT PD&E workshop going to be?
It's going to be at the University Mall.
Okay. And when is this? When is this going to come back before us?
When are we bringing this study back before you?
Yeah.
Well, I think we should have a deliverable to share by the end of the summer. That open house will be sort of the bookmark for that. So I would assume either fall or winter we'll have a report to share. The consultant is currently finalizing the redevelopment plan chapter of the report. And so that timeline is in the green rectangle at the top of this table.
Okay.
So I'll say fall or winter.
Okay. I see Miss Ornita reaching.
No, I would just echo that I think the study will wrap up in the fall, then, which you will get a presentation on the results of the study, but then that will be followed by amendments to both the City of Tampa and county comprehensive plans. To implement the recommendations, it needs to be into the comprehensive plan, so that will probably be into 2024 before you see those plan amendments.
Okay. And I did have one other question. You didn't talk a lot about FDOT except to let us know that they're doing a PD&E study. Beside this, I'm wondering when they come up with their ideas for what that area is going to be, how are we kind of working that into what we're doing or thinking? I mean, obviously FDOT's a pretty important agency when it comes to traffic and transportation and streets. So
yeah, of course. Thank you for asking. We actually have monthly coordination meetings with them along with HART, where we plan outreach events and also talk about the policy. So our latest deliverable, Jay and I were able to share that with HART and FDOT a couple weeks ago. And we have tasked the consultant, our consultant on this vision plan, to create basically an analysis between the PD&E alternatives and the recommendations that they are producing.
Okay.
Our recommendations. So there should be some narrative in the report speaking to basically the pros and cons of the alternatives and how they influence or affect the success of the policies that Kimberly Horn, our consultant, is proposing.
All right, very good. That was it from me, and I am not seeing any other lights around the room, so we will thank you for the information, sir, and move on to our next presentation. 4E, Greater Palm River Area Community Plan Update, and the presenter is Sophia Garantiva.
Hello again, Planning Commission. Sophia Garantiva, Planning Commission staff, here to present on the status of the Greater Palm River Area Community Plan Update. So just as a refresher, the Greater Palm River Area Community Plan was adopted in 2008 following extensive community involvement. This map highlights the adopted boundary of the community plan. The area is shaded in blue. The Palm River Tampa Bypass Canal is to the north, US 301 to the east, and the boundary of the Riverview Community Plan to the south, and the Tampa city limits, Hillsborough Bay to the west. In 2022, county staff was actually requested by the Board of County Commissioners to review the implementation status of the adopted community plan, and based on those findings presented at the September 8th BOCC meeting, the board requested Planning Commission and county staff to initiate an update to the plan. And just note, there is no consultant, it is just staff on this. So the purpose of the update was to reevaluate and amend the community plan to respond to the needs and preferences of the community today, with specific inclusion of the Progress Village neighborhood. So we kicked off the public engagement process with 2 hybrid community-wide open houses in November of 2022. We introduced staff, reviewed the community plan update process, and attendees participated in a SWOT activity, SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Shortly after, we launched an online survey to gather additional input, and it was based on the SWOT activity as well, with questions related to the same. In January, we began holding office hours in the community every 4th Wednesday of the month, alternating between the Palm River Point CDC office and Emmanuel P. Johnson Community Center in the Progress Village area. We've also held monthly Community Plan Advisory Committee meetings, CPAC for short, with a mixture of different stakeholders representing organizations, individual residents, and business owners. These meetings are open to the public, and the committee is voluntary. We have anywhere from 10 to 20 attendees consistently attending. County staff has been present throughout the public engagement process to answer any questions from the community, and we're about midway through our engagement process, and additional outreach opportunities will include another set of community-wide meetings to be scheduled in September, and another online survey. The presentations and materials from these outreach events and additional information regarding the update are available on our project website. And as part of the community plan update, we are reconfirming the community vision. This includes updating the adopted vision concept map as shown on the left. The map illustrates certain physical elements articulated in the community plan vision statement and the plan's goals and strategies. We have prepared a working draft as shown on the right, and have incorporated community input received thus far, such as identifying the different neighborhoods within the community plan area, and also including and incorporating changes from county-wide studies, such as the Greenways Master Plan Update and the Centers and Connections initiative. The adopted community plan identifies 9 goals with various strategies. The goals are listed in order of priority, with the highest priority goal being infrastructure and utilities, followed by crime and public safety, traffic transportation, parks and recreation, planning and growth, economic development, senior social health, medical services and schools, environment and natural resources, and historic preservation. We have been discussing and reconfirming the goals and the strategies with the community. As you can see on the right, it's just some examples of the input we've received from the community during our CPAC meetings. And then based on these conversations and the survey results, infrastructure and utilities, crime and public safety, traffic transportation remain the top 3 goals. As previously mentioned, we began the public engagement process in November and conducted our first online survey in that same time period. We've been holding monthly office hours and CPAC meetings and attending community events when possible since January. This summer, we will hold 2 more CPAC meetings in June and July at the request of the community, and we'll have one at the end of this month as well. We will also be reviewing draft policy recommendations throughout the summer. In the fall, we plan to hold another set of community-wide meetings to present the full plan recommendations to the community, and then from there, we will initiate the comprehensive plan amendment process. This concludes my presentation. Jay Collins and I are available for any questions.
All right, thank you. Mr. Collins is a busy man. Are there any questions on this item, discussions from the commissioners? Not seeing any. We'll thank you for the information and the presentation and move on to our next agenda item, 5, the Executive Director's Report, and the presenter is Melissa Zornita.
Good afternoon, Melissa Zornita, Executive Director. At your seats, you should have a listing of different activities that either myself or staff have undertaken. I'll just provide a couple of highlights, but I did try to go into a little bit more detail in response to your discussion about my evaluation last month, wanting to have more understanding of what all activities I undertake. But just a couple of highlights. A major focus in this last month has been on the update of the county's future land use element, as we've been focused on outreach on that section of the plan. I made presentations at the Agricultural Economic Development Council and the Soil and Water Conservation District, and we held our first public engagement meeting on April 25th, and then also had a project advisory team meeting, which is a little bit more of a focus group of very engaged stakeholders last week. We've gotten good response. We also have around 1,800 people who took the online survey related to that topic. So we were pleased with that response level. In addition, at the, I guess it was a week or two ago, I had the opportunity to meet with the THEA staff, Tampa Hillsborough Expressway Authority, with the county staff to talk about how some of their planned facilities might support the additional growth that would come with the update of the future land use element. In particular, they're looking at continuing the Selman Expressway down into South County, potentially along 301. And one of the biggest things that we've heard in all of the engagement opportunities we've had is that the infrastructure is not keeping up with the growth, and the top of the list is transportation. So us looking for all options for how we might be able to alleviate that, to allow the continued growth in our community, or what we're trying to explore. I will also add that I had a meeting with the USF Masters in Urban and Regional Planning staff, Professor Linkus and Amber Dickerson, who's their, I guess planner in residence is the right term, about some opportunities to utilize their studio program in the fall and possibly also in the spring. They're just launching this program. They had a studio project for the students this past spring, and I was lobbying to have them do some work for us because it's a very cost-affordable way for us to get some projects advanced with the students' help. We have, as you see, a lot of studies going on, a lot of plan amendments. We just got 9 more plan amendments in for the city of Tampa this month. So the workload continues to be robust, but I don't know that that's going to last forever. And so I'm looking at ways like leveraging some student support on projects to allow us to address the workload in non-permanent ways, because I don't know that the workload's going to continue to be at this pace forever. So I don't want to expand with additional staff. So looking at that, as well as potentially an additional intern from the University of South Florida, we've found them to be very capable. I think last month, Erica, who's one of our interns this year, made a presentation to you all on a plan amendment. So they're able to really dive in and do high quality work for us. So the last thing that I wanted to mention was that on Friday, Commissioner Joseph and a couple of staff and members of the Tampa Heights Junior Civic Association, we all attended the Future of the Region Awards from the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council, and we were pleased to receive recognition for the Flip Junior program, which we will be having again this summer at 2 summer camps in Tampa Heights and in Town and Country. And we're pleased to continue that partnership, as well as our Flip program, which will be the first week of the summer break, the week of Memorial Day for high school students. With that, I would simply remind you all that in addition to next month's meeting on June 12th, you also will have the strategic planning retreat, which is with the TPO board and the River Board on June 16th in the morning at the Tampa Firefighters Museum. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yes, Commissioner Bernstein.
Not a question so much as a comment, but I just want to say congratulations. That Flip Junior thing is one of the coolest things that we do, that your staff really carries the ball on. So congrats to you and your staff. That's recognition well deserved. And the same is true for other initiatives that we don't talk a lot about, but having a USF student, for example, take part in the process of talking about planning amendments and presenting them, that's important to continue, and maybe even there's opportunities to grow things like that going forward.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bernstein. Commissioner Buzzard?
Oh, I just wanted to second that emotion. I'm very happy that you got the award, and I'm happy for such an engaged and joyous staff. So we appreciate you very much and your staff. Thank you.
Thank you. I did forget to mention something. I had an update on plan amendments that I forgot to cover.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I know y'all are always interested in what happens to the amendments after they leave here. So in the city of Tampa, there was an amendment that the Planning Commission found consistent on Tampania Avenue that was passed by City Council. There was one on Channelside Drive, one of the ones in the coastal high hazard area that you all found consistent and City Council supported. City Council moved forward the accessory dwelling unit text amendment that staff had proposed, and the plan amendment on Washington Street. I'm trying to think of which part of Washington Street that one's on. That one, you all found consistent, and council also adopted that one. We had 4 county plan amendments that moved forward to the Board of County Commissioners. One of them near the Tampa Executive Airport. We had found it inconsistent, and the Board of County Commissioners requested that to continue to have a concurrent rezoning associated with it. The board did transmit the functional classification map. There was the one on Sumner Road that was last month. They were talking about an assisted living facility there. That one they withdrew, and then the one that was on Martin Luther King Boulevard, east of 75. We had found it inconsistent, as did you all, but the Board of County Commissioners adopted it. That's
all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. On to unless there's a question, Commissioner Lauk, I see a light.
That was great. Thank you for the good summary. I think it's really important we hear about that stuff.
Okay, sure thing.
All right. Thank you. All right. On to our next item of business, number 6. Other business, chair's business, I have none. Old business, there is none. Looks like we got some new business. All right, first up we have C1, removal of the invocation from order of business at meetings in the bylaws. So
I should have stayed down there, sorry. So at your retreat on April 13th, 2 items were brought up. The first of which was a request to consider removing the invocation from the order of business of meetings outlined in the Planning Commission bylaws. There was not clear consensus based on the members who were at the retreat about how to proceed on that. So we're looking for direction on that. The bylaws, just so everyone's familiar with it, can be amended by a 2/3 majority vote after 2 hearings of the bylaws amendments. So we would need to bring, if it was your direction, to bring back a change in language, we would bring that back at the June meeting, and then at the July meeting, you would take action, and that would need to be a 2/3 majority vote to make that change.
All right, thank you. So, don't know, yes,
I
Commissioner
was
Kress.
the one who raised it at the retreat, so I can go first and just kind of reiterate what I said there. It feels, I think, if you choose to pray, it's a very personal thing, and I don't think it has a home here in our meetings. I don't think it's relevant to our meetings. And sometimes our meetings go really long, so it just helps speed things along, too. So that's kind of my position on it.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Kress. Are there any other thoughts or comments, Commissioner Buzza?
Well, you know, we kind of got into it at the retreat, so I'll expound on my reason for keeping the invocation. I did a little research in the past 2 weeks after the retreat and looked at the Supreme Court ruling on it, Marsh versus Chambers. And the gist of that one in a 2014 Supreme Court ruling were that you can have an invocation at a public meeting as long as there's no viewpoint discrimination. You cannot moderate what the speaker does during their moment of prayer. They can do a poem, they can do an expression of goodwill toward the nature, that sort of thing. They can do a Wiccan prayer. Actually, the 1983 Supreme Court case was ACLU winning that for a Wiccan to do a pagan prayer at a city commission meeting. And I was open about that at the retreat as well, that I think the invocation gives a level of solemnity to our proceedings, gives us a moment to say, this is what we're doing in front of us is important. Now, does it have to be Christian? No. Does it have to be Jewish, Islamic, Buddhist, all the world religions or no religions, atheist, agnostic? No, it can be, as long as it's uplifting and not offensive. I think that the invocation doesn't need to be a millstone around the neck. It can be an opportunity for those who are not Christian or not of any religion to offer just a moment of uplifting thought. You know, it doesn't have to be half the King James. So, I mean, it's easier to destroy something than it is to fix or create. So instead of deleting the invocation, maybe we look at improving it. And those that are Christian can espouse those faith. Those that are Jewish, Islamic, Buddhist, atheist, I take no offense to an atheist prayer or whatever they end up doing. That's part of being a citizen in this country and being inclusive. So, again, always easier to destroy than it is to create or fix, and I would move that we keep the invocation. My 2 cents. Well, and also, just looking at all of our jurisdictions, every one of them has an invocation at the beginning of their meeting. City of Tampa, City of Temple Terrace, City of Plant City, Hillsborough County, U.S. or Florida House, Florida Senate, you know, all those have an invocation. So there's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Commissioner Buzza. Commissioner Lauk.
That was beautifully stated, Commissioner Buzza. I tend to agree with the majority of your points. I think it's also important to reiterate and point out the primary thing that I thought of as we discussed this in our meeting when I went back to take a look at it. All of us on this board have been appointed by one of the governing jurisdictions. City of Tampa, Hillsborough County, City of Temple Terrace, Plant City. Every single one of those bodies has an invocation. So the folks that represent the constituents that we represent, who are appointing us, have operative norms in their meetings. And I think it's important that we're in lockstep in most cases with those norms. So those bodies are currently having them for their constituents. I think we need to be in line with that, number one. And then number two, it is easier to destroy something than build it up, right? So that's my 2 cents. I think if we're trying to be in line with what our constituents are after, our constituents are those governing bodies who represent the constituents of this county and in the municipalities.
Thank you, Commissioner Lau. Commissioner Fernandez.
Yeah, I would just say, does anybody else have a invocation or a prayer at any other meeting you go to at work? Because this is the only one I have that I consider this work, even if it's, for City of Temple Terrace municipality. But I just find it strange that this is still a practice. I go to 10 meetings a week. Not one of them starts with a prayer. And, I know we can possibly have a prayer of a different religion, but have we ever? I know I've been on this board, it's always been a Christian prayer, so we say it's open to everybody, but it's just hard when it's 100% on one side. And I just agree, it eats up time. I mean, right now, it's eating up time. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Fernandez. Yes, Commissioner Bernstein.
Yeah, I respect every opinion I've heard so far, and I apologize for missing the workshop discussion. It sounds like it was a pretty lively discussion. I guess I would just say this. It sounds to me like the question is less about whether we can do it and more about whether we should continue to do it. I think, too, if there's a motion to be made from a process perspective, it sounds like the motion would be simply to agenda this for a bylaws amendment initial conference, if I understand it right, Counselor, that would lead to a subsequent meeting that's also required before ultimately this is put up for a vote before this body. But I would think just on the merits, all of us, I suspect, are going to come at this from our own personal perspectives. It's unavoidable. We're here and appointed to this body for our personal perspectives. We bring that every day, and Commissioner Lauk's absolutely right. We're also here on behalf of a much larger community. But my sense going into the 4th year of my term is that while this does add an amount of time to the proceedings, it's always been an amount of time I personally am willing to endure. Probably these things go on for no more than 1 to 2 minutes of additional time, and usually these are lengthy proceedings. I think, too, with all due respect to my colleague Commissioner Fernandez, I've never really taken, and maybe it's just my own personal view, the prayer is even Judeo or Christian. I'm thinking of the invocation I gave today, which did use the term bless, but in all other respects was a fairly non-denominational delivery. I delivered that, just so the record is clear, from a set of examples that was furnished to me by the chair, but I've never taken that to mean that those are my only options. When I deliver the invocation, I hope that all of my colleagues on the commission feel the same way, that they have a broad degree of latitude, and if they don't understand that, they probably need to, because I also share the views of Commissioner Buzza that to me it's much less about what is said and more in a way about how it's said, and we should be elevating ourselves. I don't view this as just another job personally. I feel like I'm here because a body appointed me to be here, and that body was elected by their constituents. And so, to me, this is, and I would add, I don't clock in for work here, as my law firm has probably pointed out to me more than once. And so, this has a different feel to it than perhaps some other commitments that at least I have. And so, I just would say this. While it's always a healthy exercise to look at and revisit our bylaws, if we're going to undertake that exercise, perhaps there's other things we should consider too. But I perhaps may be alone in saying this, but I don't think this is something that's in search of a fix. I don't think it's broken to begin with, and I look forward to the invocations to set the tone for our board meetings before we head into the public hearings later in the evening. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Bernstein. Yes, Commissioner Bowden.
Yeah, this is kind of ironic. I've sat on another board in another jurisdiction, and a similar situation was brought up. Being new on the commission, and I'm not very familiar with the bylaws, what actually happened in that organization was the term invocation was changed to reflection. And the reflection was actually that, and it was totally non-denominational. It was just a short verse of something to uplift people for whatever within themselves and the way they perceived it. And since that, excuse me, that experience, I've carried it to another board, and they've now adopted that term, reflection versus invocation. So, my 2 cents worth.
Thank you, Commissioner Bowden. I believe Commissioner Handy's on the line also with some comments.
Yes, thank you. A few points. I also am, well, I'm concerned personally, as Commissioner Bernstein pointed out, because there have been several recent invocations that invoked our Heavenly Father. And as I have said before, it is speaking on behalf of the board, which I am a member of. And I think that in the current political state here in Florida, inclusivity is being broken down and denied. And I think we need to be very cognizant of that. And my concern is not so much personally as it is for the people who come before this board. They hear what to them sounds like a Christian prayer, whether it's meant to be or not. And they are not necessarily thinking that they are relating or appearing or speaking to people that feel the way they do. And they might not be treated inclusively by a board that starts out with a prayer that sounds like that to them. And I can say that because I have been someone that has presented in front of the Planning Commission as a citizen, and I am dismayed to hear a Christian prayer when I'm trying to state my case to a board that I then think, well, they have a different philosophy than I do. So that is a big concern for me. And then relating to, it's more difficult to destroy things. Well, I think it's more difficult to go against the grain, and it's more difficult to change something that has been a long-standing accepted practice. And maybe it's time to think about that. There's been a lot of things in the history of our society that took a long time to change and to become enlightened about. And I think that it takes more courage to let's do something different and reflect on this instead of just keeping it status quo for the sake of our constituents. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Handy. All right, Commissioner Cardenas.
You know, the interesting thing is, the interesting thing is, personally, I'm kind of, whether I hear somebody pray or not pray, it really doesn't make too much of a difference to me, but I actually think about it from the perspective of, are we going to make somebody feel left out? And what I mean by that is, you know, we're appointed to this board, and we're appointed to this board by public officials, and sitting on this board, it says that we all work together. It says that we're all here working together and working on things. And with that said, when somebody, whether they pray or, you know, they pray Christian or they pray Buddhist or whatever it is, we're all here together doing that together. Meaning, when the people are out there and they're watching us and they're seeing somebody come and pray whatever prayer they see, well, they should also look around the table and see everybody else here that's here for that, and in a way, doing it together, because that's where we are. That's what our country is. We're all doing stuff together. So, unless I hear some really good reasoning beyond that, I just don't see a reason why to do something to make somebody feel different or make somebody feel like they're maybe left out. You know, when I first started sitting on this board, I remember bringing it up to my family, and they went online and they watched. And my little cousins that are of my color
saw me up here and were like, oh, wow. Well, it's not just color of skin, it's religion, it's everything. So those are my 2 cents.
Thank you, Commissioner Cardenas. Good points. Yes, Commissioner Wharton.
I figured I might as well add to this as everyone else is, and I abide by separation of church and state. I'm a Christian, but, you know, I feel like there's a place, but also, like Commissioner Buzza said, when do we stop taking things away? So if someone is offended that we pledge allegiance, are we going to take that out next? Because there are many people who do not salute the flag. So if that offends them, do we take that out of our bylaws also, not to do the Pledge of Allegiance?
Good point, Commissioner Wharton. All great points. I think we got over $1 with all those 2 cents we just added up here. My feeling's the same as it was at the retreat. I mean, I tend to agree with Commissioner Buzza. I wouldn't want to limit anyone from doing anything, and I think, you know, as Commissioner Bernstein said, maybe we need to work on things a little bit to make it so that everyone's aware it's more open if anyone is unaware. But, you know, to me, stopping one type of prayer or stopping one type of celebration or dance or representation of whatever a commissioner decides to get up here and do, I think is not the best thing. I think, as Commissioner Cardenas told us, this is an opportunity for us to show the community that we can work together, even though we're different, even though we have all these kind of different ideas and thoughts. So to me, I'd kind of like to keep it where it is. So that's just my 2 cents. Yes, and I'll put it back over to Commissioner Handy, who has some comments. Or maybe.
I'm sorry, I didn't lower my hand.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Commissioner Kress.
But I would like to reiterate that if we are concerned with inclusivity, I mean, it's really easy for the Christian-dominated culture that we tend to live in because of, like you said, all the boards that still say a prayer. If we are really, really concerned about not alienating anyone, any person within our constituency or within our communities, then we would err on the side of neutrality, which means no prayer. And I think that it is, I don't think it's anything like the Pledge of Allegiance. That is, I mean, that's entirely different from, you know, religious personal beliefs. Again, I'm just concerned about the people that come before the board, hear a Christian prayer and assume that there are certain mindsets that will be encountered because of that. So, and I guess we've probably spent enough time, more than $1. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Handy.
Lower my hand.
All right, Commissioner Kress.
I thought Commissioner Bowden's suggestion that's worked on other boards was a good one. If the point of this is to set the tone for the meeting and uplift us, then I think, what was the word you used? You know, a moment of reflection would be certainly appropriate. It also, I think, satisfies those who want to see more of a separation of church and state. So I think I would be supportive of offering that as a nice compromise that might meet everyone's intentions, if that works for everyone else.
Thank you, Commissioner Kress. Commissioner Buzza.
Thank you, Commissioner Kress and Chairman Joseph. To kind of recap where I had gone with my thoughts and all the research that I did do on this, you know, the first government recorded invocation was at the First Continental Congress in 1774. We've had a invocation for the United States Senate and the United States House of Representatives ever since it was created. The Senate and the House have not deleted their invocation. They opened it to non-Christians to do moments of reflection or invocation. If it was such a non-inclusive thing, you think that the supreme legislative bodies in our country, the Senate and the House, would have removed the invocation by this point, and they have not. So I think fixing something that's not broken, and I'm not open to a name change. I mean, I am open to a name change, excuse me. But to delete the invocation, I think is chasing your tail. And then it does open the can to, well, Mr. So-and-so doesn't believe in the flag. Why did we do the Pledge of Allegiance? You know, and people will say that's silly, but there is a lot of slippery slope decisions that are being made nowadays that once you open that, and the invocation, again, is supposed to be something positive. It is not supposed to demean anybody. It is supposed to uplift us all, to make us a good team. And again, I would love for the folks who want to vote no against this to instead think, hey, I'm going to bring an inspirational poem. I'm going to have a short minute and a half about the environment. Use that time positively instead of deleting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Buzz. All very good comments. I thought I saw Commissioner Lauk's light on. Pulled back? Okay. All right. Are there any more comments, discussion items on this? Do we need to take a motion? I'll kick it back over to the two who brought it to us, Mr. Robin, Ms. Ornita. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Fernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to push back on the, it's going to lead to the flag, that we're not going to want the flag. This is a religious debate we're having here, not a country debate. All right, so you can love your country without having to be religious. So I just thought I noticed it came up 3 times, I think, just like that. The slippery slope is that you're leading it there. That's not what that's debate's about. Debate's about religion.
Thank you, Commissioner Fernandez. Commissioner Lauk.
With all due respect to Commissioner Fernandez, I would summarily reject that idea. One nation under God. There have been folks in the town square and the public square for a generation that have argued that we need to remove those words from the Pledge of Allegiance. And in fact, they've argued that in public schools, the pledge shouldn't be said at all. So it's not a slippery slope. So if we remove the invocation, that theoretically could be next, because of the rub of those agitating to remove the invocation in our midst are concerned about the dynamics of religion in the invocation. So it's entirely appropriate for those of us who want the invocation to be concerned that it's potentially a slippery slope. 20 to 30 years in our society completely underscore and form us to that, period. In terms of separation of church and state with Commissioner Kress, and this is settled law. It's 2014. It's at every single level of our government, from small boards like this, to the jurisdictions that we serve, to the state legislatures of Florida. The governor swears on a Bible. When we've had governors of other denominations, Jewish, they on the right. It's not just the Bible. It happens at every single level. United States Congress, United States President, every single level of government. And I don't want to be out of step with that. I'm not open to a name change, given that it's called an invocation at every level of our government.
Thank you, Commissioner Lauk. Commissioner Orton.
Just one more thing. They said that, I can't remember which commissioner, but said the Pledge of Allegiance had nothing to do with religion, but it does, because there are many people that believe that the flag is an idol. And there is a faith that does believe the flag is an idol and does not, practice saying the Pledge of Allegiance. So it can be taken away.
Points. Thank you, Commissioner Orton. Are there any more comments from the commissioners? Not seeing any. I'll kick it back to our two who started this off. If you want a motion or more direction, more precise direction, or a vote?
Commissioners, thank you, Mr. Chair. You can, of course, approach this with a motion if you choose, or you can do it by consensus. I was just counting noses, and I noticed we have one commissioner who's absent. So if I gave that commissioner if I called that out on the less predominant side of the comments that we've heard, we'd be at 50-50. It takes 7 votes to change the bylaws. So if you want to debate this more, then you can move it forward and find a consensus basis or take a vote on it. If not, unless you counted differently than I did, there doesn't seem to be a consensus to move forward in the discussion.
Right. Well, Commissioner Buzza?
I'm open to make a motion if we're done discussing.
All right. Well, I will go ahead and accept your motion then, if you want to go ahead and make it, unless any commissioners had anything else they wanted to say. Or else, I mean, certain commissioners, Commissioner Kress, you did bring this up. I mean, we're looking, do you want to make it a motion, or do you want to just let it die with consensus that we don't really want it to go forward? I mean,
I feel like the results of the motion are pretty clear, so we
okay,
don't have to
we'll do
take the time to do it.
okay. All right, so then that's the end of that. Everyone good? Everyone okay? All right, Commissioner Fernandez is smiling.
Good, but
so
if that's the end, that's the end.
that's, yeah. All right. All right, so that one, we're not going to give you all any directions to go forward with that. We'll leave that one where it lies. And we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is C, new business 2, and applicant in-person attendance provisions.
So this was the second item that came up at the retreat about whether or not to have applicants attend in person. Before I turn it over to Tracy, I did find out the cities of Plant City and Temple Terrace do not have virtual options to their meetings. So everybody has to attend in person, whether they're an applicant or the public. While the city of Tampa does not have a specific policy, I just wanted, Danny wrote it really nicely, so I wanted to read it. The city attorney said applicants and members of the public have the option to appear virtually, but are encouraged to appear in person for city council hearings. And I would say the same generalized statement is true of the county. At the last plan amendment public hearing, all of the applicants, at least somebody from their team were in person. Maybe not all of their experts or, owners, that type of thing, but it did appear that somebody was always in person, but I don't think they have a written requirement. As I shared with Commissioner Lauck, I think to some degree that's because this is still rather new and everybody's figuring out, do we need to have rules related to some of these things? With that, I'll turn over to Tracy if you had anything to add.
After the discussion, I told you I would go back and look at the special act and the statutes. The special act, Chapter 97, 351, does have authority in it for the Planning Commission to establish requirements for the conduct of its own meetings. And I think within the parameters of that language, the board has the authority to make that requirement if it sees fit.
All right, Commissioner Buzza.
Mr. Robin, would that require a bylaw change or clarification to the bylaws?
I think a bylaws change would be in order, considering the bylaws don't address the issue per se. We've just been through the pandemic-related requirements and easing of some of attendance requirements, both for boards and for others. I certainly hope that we're past all of the worst of that, and we won't see a replay of it. So if it's the consensus of the board that should be the standard for your meetings, then I think it would be appropriate to put that in the bylaws at this point.
Thank you. All right, so we need oh, sorry, go, Commissioner Locke.
And just for clarity purposes, for the commissioners who weren't able to make the retreat, I brought this up originally due to the technical issues that we're consistently having from our applicants. At least it seems once per meeting, I know it's anecdotal evidence, but at least once per meeting, we have an issue with someone on that screen where they can't get their point across, where we have to pause, we have to hold, we have to reboot, and whatever it is. And we're not in the midst of a pandemic at this point. And I think it's appropriate to ask our applicants to come in, public and private, when they have an application before us. So if I think about even some of the staff at some of the jurisdictions outside Melissa's team, we don't, with the exception of the city of Tampa, we don't always see them. Even when there's a disconnect between staff's finding, Melissa's staff's finding, and that body's finding. And they're not here to advocate their side in many instances. So I think it's appropriate that they come and they present their case, compelling or not, and address us in person. extenuating circumstances can be spoken to as we debate whether we want to do it or not. But that was the genesis of the idea.
Thank you for that information. Yes, Commissioner Buzza.
I would like to second Commissioner Lauk's thoughts on that. I think that the engineers and the land use attorneys that are presenting in front of us have the capacity to be here in person. If they have experts that need to present, then they should also be available in person for direct questioning. There could be issues where we have an exigent situation where, again, someone's had a family emergency, or I think we could do that on a case-by-case basis to allow someone to assist a presenter, maybe one of their team, if there was a realistic reason for why they cannot be here in person. But I think for us to be able to see their eyes, see their body language, and be able to ask direct questions to them without the delay of WebEx or the scratchy of a telephone connection, I think it's very important for them to be here in person.
Thank you, Commissioner Buzza. Yes, Commissioner Kress.
I'm sure I'll be in the minority on this one too, but we have technical issues here in the room. I agree, it's way better if they can come in person, but I know the cost of development is super high, and I think we're just adding to that cost by making people come here in person, especially if they're from out of town. I think from a climate perspective, we're just adding more kind of, traffic on the roads, et cetera. We are an advisory body. We're not necessarily making final decisions, so I'm okay if they can't come in person and they need to participate virtually.
Thank you, Commissioner Kress. All right. Any more, Commissioner? Oh, sorry, Commissioner Handy's got some comments. Please go ahead.
Yeah, a couple things. I'd like to clarify that this does not apply to the public and residents who want to weigh in and provide public comment on some of these proposed, like comp plan amendments, for example. And I think I understand what Commissioner Kress is saying, and I don't disagree. And I think that the compromise should be that if there are, experts, architects, engineers, what have you, that are out of town, the entire team does not need to appear in person. But I think that I don't think it's too much to ask for the actual applicant to appear in person in front of the board. I think that it's easy enough for these people to change our comp plan amendment pretty much willy-nilly. And I'm not trying to make it harder on them, but I do think that it's a process that shows respect for our comp plan and for the public that have to live with the proposed changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Handy. Yes, Commissioner Bernstein.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been listening to the comments, all really well thought out, and I guess I'm thinking back again on my own experience in this room over the last 4 years, most of which have taken place during and post-pandemic. And I just can't, perhaps I just am not remembering them because they weren't as impactful, but I don't remember that many times over the long haul where an applicant has failed to appear in person. Of course, there were times when we were all remote, and those days are in the rearview mirror. But I guess my point to all this is that if we're considering adopting a change that could have long-term consequences that ultimately deprive us of the opportunity to benefit from their participation, we should think about that. Would we rather have them here? I know I would. Who wouldn't? But do we want to draw a line in the sand? To me, that's a different question. And I do worry a little bit about unintended consequences if it causes this commission to miss out on input that is always worth getting when the alternative is not to get it at all. So I just think we should tread somewhat carefully if we're going to implement a new provision in that regard.
Good points, Commissioner Bernstein. Yeah, I would agree. Commissioner Handy, I kind of hit the nail on the head, being careful with that language to make sure that we're being inclusive and not excluding people by the way we write these things and set them up. I think that's going to have to be a very important thing with this if we go forward with it. Yes, Commissioner Lauk.
I tend to agree. The devil's in the details on this one. Yes, the public should be exempted from this. This is not a requirement for the public. It's specifically for applicants. If we have a lead applicant in attendance, handovers, virtual handovers, when necessary, if the presenter's expertise doesn't carry to the question being asked, maybe they hand over to someone on the bridge. But I do think from a bare minimum, we should have at least one applicant here in person in order to move forward. And I don't think in my year and a half, 2 years on the board, I've seen an application that couldn't stand tabling if the applicant couldn't be here and the world was going to end.
Thank you, Commissioner Lauk. All right, were there any other? Okay, Commissioner Handy, is that a new question, a new comment, new question, or?
Oh, I beg your pardon. No, I just didn't lower it. Sorry
Okay,
about that.
thank you, no problem. All right, any other comments or discussions from the commissioners, questions? Not seeing any, then, oh, yes, Commissioner Bowden.
And unfortunately, I wasn't here for the retreat, so I may be missing part of how this even came up. But my thought is, and what I've kind of heard is that maybe not the actual applicant, but someone that represents the applicant be in person so that they can convey and actually answer questions back. And you know, understanding, being in a lot of businesses, you know, and different places and covering huge geographic territories in my past, you know, there was sometimes I had to bite the bullet, you know, and leave home at Sunday, leave my kid playing baseball and do what I had to do because it was a business decision that I was making. So sometimes you have to do that, or you in turn, you pay someone to represent you there. But yeah, but be available if there is a question that is needed an answer for. So that's my thought in that regards.
Thank you. All right, any more comments or questions from the commissioners? Not seeing any, then we need some direction.
No, I would just say that I feel like on this one, we got some good, clear consensus from you all about, and we'll bring back, work with Mr. Robin on some draft language about the expectation being that a representative of the applicant be in person, and that extenuating circumstances would be considered to that. Something, I'm on the fly trying to wordsmith something, which is probably not a good idea, but something to that effect, and added into the section on the conduct of the meeting to the bylaws.
And I was just going to add to your point, you use that word extenuating. We have a standard. We learned just again today that applies to us. Maybe we should look at something that taps into a similar vein, whether extraordinary circumstances, exigency, something like that.
I've got two comments, if you will, please. To that particular one, I'm concerned about establishing exceptions because they need to be applied in a way that is absolutely fairly compared from one to the next, or my concern is that there would be complaints that this wasn't handled in an even-handed fashion. One person's excuse was better than another person's excuse, or not as good as a third person's excuse, and that, to the extent that it affected their plan amendment, that it would open the door to procedural issues. And I would be inclined to recommend against that. The other thing that I didn't hear any comment, well, there was comment at the beginning, but I'm a little fuzzy on a consensus of the board, would be how it applies to planning commission staff and to city and county staff for attendance at these meetings. If the board could give Melissa and I a little bit more clarification on that, I think it would be useful.
So I guess my understanding was if those staff were the applicant, then, like if the city of Tampa is the applicant on land development code amendments today, that, quite honestly, we told them all that you all really wanted them to be here. So they were all, the county and the city were both here today. So I guess that's how I interpreted that, but if that's
So
incorrect.
Publicly initiated plan
Yes.
amendments would require the jurisdictional staff.
Yeah, and it wouldn't necessarily just be plan amendments. So I think we can work on that wording though, Tracy.
Okay.
Commissioner Buzza.
Well, and Attorney Robin brought up a kind of a good point. When we have the use of exceptions, are we going to ask for a doctor's note, or take them at their word that, hey, that I'm not in Barbados having a vacay, my car broke down, or, you know, something happened to one of my family members. Are we gonna, you know, we get into the weeds, I think, then if there's a case by case on the exceptions where litigation can arise from that, from discriminatory discussions, you know?
My comment was essentially, I would not draft those provisions into the proposal unless the board directs me to do so. And then I'll do my best.
Commissioner Lauk.
Maybe a point of clarification on the publicly initiated items. Perhaps the litmus test is, are we being asked to take action? So for example, we had a litany of things tonight from the city of Tampa. These things are coming up, right? And maybe if they don't want to be here for that, it's at their discretion. But if the board is being requested to have an action or a vote, perhaps that's the line. Just throwing it out there for discussion for the group.
Yeah, I like that. Ms. Kress, yeah.
And to clarify, are we saying like one person from their team has to be in person and everyone else could be virtual? Or, I mean, you know, just, we probably should be specific.
Why is everybody looking at
I
me?
mean, what I was sort of thinking in my drafting was the applicant or a representative of the applicant. Because I do think that if they're, you know, they have a, you know, transportation expert or something who they're not sure is going, you all are going to have questions about transportation. And you might not. There have been some instances where you've really delved into that and other ones you haven't. So they may be, you know, saving their clients some money by having them remote, just on the off chance you ask the question. So there are often a lot of folks in a team, you know, in case there's a question about environmental or a case there's a question about something. So
yes, Commissioner Orton.
I think they need to have at least a representative and then have their experts available, because I've been to planning commission meetings and I will look around to see who can answer the question for the applicant, because a member of the planning commission has asked a question I couldn't answer, so I would look at the applicant who can answer part of your team, and no one's available, and it's like, we'll have to get back to you on that one. So maybe if they have a representative and then you know, their experts are online or something, at least somebody can answer a question.
And I would just add that I don't think we're going to probably be able to cover every circumstance, and there will be instances, we've had instances in the past where an applicant hasn't shown up, the item's been continued because we didn't have an applicant, or there are unanswered questions that you all have and you all are not in a position to take action. So I don't want I want to manage the expectations that still might occur.
All right. Was that enough consensus and direction, or did we need to provide something more solid? Tracy doesn't seem to be scowling, so it must be okay.
I think Melissa and I, if you're in agreement, have enough direction that we should be able to get a draft put together, and then I think it will be important to have everybody, you know, scour that and give us give us any changes that you want made.
Okay, and that would come back twice before us, right? Because it's a bylaws change, and then it would need to.
Yes, I mean, we could do that. We could get you a draft and have this discussion again at the next meeting for refinements. Make any more finalized changes for the July meeting.
Okay. All right. Sound good to everyone? All right. All right. Well, we will move on to our next agenda item in that case, and it is 6D, committee reports. Does anybody have any committee reports? I am not seeing anyone hurrying to it, so we will move on to our final item, which is the final item of the meeting, the adjournment. And with that, our meeting will be over. It is 5 o'clock now, so we will be back at, what time is it, 5:30? We'll see you at 5:30 for our public hearings. Meeting adjourned.